Hi, welcome. This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail.
Hey, everyone. Welcome. What a great show we've got planned for you. Michele Magner is joining me here today, and I want to say something about this. I could not have met Michele any sooner in life. I never thought that I would be put in a position where her message would have been so powerful, so helpful, and life-saving to me. And today, we're going to talk about the checked out caregiver. Now, I know what this means firsthand, because I'll tell you, I was almost there in a lot of ways. But this is what Michele does. This is a body of work. She's an expert in this field. And we've done a number of shows on this. She is out there helping people just the way I needed help here in a situation I never thought I'd be in. Taking care of somebody that, my best friend, in a situation I had no way to predict. Michele, thank you so much for being here. Checked out. I mean, like, right? That's like an understatement. And it happens so subtly sometimes, right? Tell us what we mean by that.
By checked out, what I mean is not engaged in your day-to-day life and the caregiving process. And I would like to preface, Dr. Pat, with there are stages and phases. We're just in a crisis. We are in an emergency. And so it feels like we're emotionally and physically checked out because we are in survival mode. We are in that fight, flight, freeze. So that's not what I'm referring to with like the long haul, big picture of being checked out. We'll get more into that, but I just want to give everybody that preface with give yourself a little grace if you're currently in a situation that is a crisis, because we're just doing the best we can. We're surviving right now.
Yeah. Let's talk about what that means, and especially for people that may not recognize it, because I think it's one thing when you talk about it, but there are signs, there are things that people can recognize, and there are different situations that, that happen, patterns, if you want to look at them this way. Let's talk about what those are, because if you can't at least stop and say, oh my goodness, I am in one of those little patterns right there, it could be almost too late.
Yeah, I think this is when we are moving into an autopilot throughout our day, and we're really just focused on getting through that day versus having things to look forward to coming up in the future. These are things when you start to realize that you are not doing some of your healthy habits that you have done in the past, like drinking enough water, moving your body, going for a walk. These are these little tiny signs that you are moving into this checked out autopilot phase. So definitely anything around your health and well-being, anything where you are finding you're in auto response to the person that you're taking care of, that could mean that you're getting a little checked out. If you're not actually dialing into them and what's happening with them and their health.
I just had that experience where, I mean, when you're in that role, there are so many things that you're looking at, so many things you're juggling. But what I've learned, thanks to you, is I've learned to look at the nuances, the things that are different. And one of the things you said I want to go back to for a minute. It is one of these things where autopilot, let me just give you, autopilot is that you have forgotten that you can actually cook healthy food. And autopilot is you don't do it, and you're just right through you go through the drive-through, and before you know it, it's not once in a while, it's every day, right? I mean, these are some of the things you mentioned, not walking. But if we know that we're doing it, we can hit the pause button, right?
Right, absolutely. It's when you start to feel like there's no choice or options. That's a definite signal that you're moving into autopilot. Like, well, this is just how it is. This is just the cards I've been dealt, the circumstances that we're in. That can definitely slide us into an autopilot mode versus really, like you said, paying attention to the nuances of how are you thinking, feeling, responding, and what as the person that you're caring for, like what experience are they having? Because oftentimes what I've seen with families, the caregiver gets checked out. And then what happens is the person that we're caring for actually is declining. But the
Yes.
caregiver is so checked out because we're so focused in this autopilot mode that we're not even dialed in, that maybe they're sleeping more throughout the day, or that they're going to the bathroom more throughout the day. Like there could be things that are happening with your family member, your loved one, whoever you're caring for, that could be little signals that actually the caregiver is kind of checked out.
Yeah, totally happened. I mean, the sign that I had on May 19th to go from a talk in Chicago right to New Jersey was because I picked up on some of that, not from my best friend who literally couldn't talk, but from the caregiver at the time. There were just these things that weren't being noticed. And even when I got off the plane and both of them were in the car, I looked at one of them and I said, couldn't you see her like this? Do you know what I mean? And you described, no, because the burden, whatever it is, gets so big that you do check out. You do find a way to check out. This is something that's so important. Isn't it also critical to maybe make sure that you're having other people do some observation here to see what's going on? What do you think?
I love this in theory and concept, and I do think it's important. What I feel like I hear constantly from people is there is no one else. Like
That's
I
right.
am in
That's
this
right.
alone, right? I'm the only one. Nobody else is
That's
participating.
true.
I do think I just got chills. I do think something is with the person who is that primary caregiver. We also have to be open to who those people are that might be willing to help, but maybe we have shut them out, and who those people are that maybe would be giving us feedback that there's a problem, but we're not really dialed in and tuned in and paying attention to what whoever those people are may have to say. Like maybe it is someone that you regularly see in a spiritual setting or a healthcare setting or whatever those places are where you are engaging with other people. Let's be open to who might be giving us feedback that we have not previously been paying attention to.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, after I said that, I thought, yeah, there really wasn't anybody. And even the people that were there really didn't want to be really that involved. I mean, that's another story. But when you find yourself in the middle of that as a caregiver, and by the way, this person's health was not good itself, right? It's so great for me to come in Monday morning quarterback, but coming in, I had fresh eyes. I want to ask you this question because autopilot is great, but there's something that you talk about unhealth and also this term buffering. Now, we've talked about it before, but I really think it's worth explaining to people what that means.
I heard that term first from Brooke Castillo, and she uses that term in a way that I totally identify with. And it is doing anything in your life to avoid feeling certain feelings or to be ignoring a situation. So for me, buffering was very easy to do with wine. It's a very friendly, socially acceptable way to celebrate things, but also to not think about things and ease our stress and make ourselves feel better. Really, it's just to avoid feeling a whole bunch of feelings that we really don't want to feel.
Yeah. Boy, you said it. And, it starts out very interestingly, right? I'm just going to have a glass of wine, and then you're having a glass of wine at 10 in the morning. But it does start that out because it really does talk to the fact that you're carrying an enormous burden as a caregiver. Let's talk to that for a minute. For those of us that didn't have to have the experience, and then we did, I now know what this feels like. I now know what it feels like, to the point where I'm making decisions now to make sure my best friend is not left alone for 3 weeks while her sister is gone. I'm so aware of this, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you ask the person who is better than they were, they're just good. They're all good. Everything's good. We're good.
Right. And when we're buffering, when we're checked out, these are the types of things that we're not able to track or pay attention to, or the problems that we can see now more clearly that need to be solved. So it's so wise of you, because especially when someone has had a rebound of some sort and they're starting to feel more themselves, they're feeling better, they're getting out a little bit more, it can just be very easy to go back into the old patterns and ways.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is you will quickly get back on that downhill trajectory and slide.
Yeah.
For me, the wine, the drinking, the buffering was because it was so scary and it was painful. And it's very hard to see someone that you care so deeply about decline and no longer be themselves. And as I mentioned, it's a socially acceptable, encouraged hobby and habit. Yeah. And when I was drinking more, I found I was unable to really show up how I wanted to for these people that I cared a lot about.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So let's talk about this. For those of you that are out there saying, well, I don't drink. Okay, let me give you something else, because this is right along here. How did you check out and buffer? We're talking about that. But, we all know this, especially during the past 3 years, alcohol consumption, online purchases, 750% increase. So we all know that there was a lot of this going on for a lot of great, reasons. But there's also other ways. So I'm going to give you my little buffering, if true confessions are about this show. What I found is at the end of the night, everybody's in bed, we're all cool, monitoring the breathing, the whole business. I had to turn on my little tablet and decompress in my own way. Now, I'm not saying you don't do that, but when 1 hour turns into 3 and 4 and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, that's buffering.
Right. That's a problem. When you turn on Netflix and go through the entire series in one night, now we're buffering, right?
Yeah.
The ice cream, you can go through a list of different ways, and people know what it is for them. Maybe it's the 32-ounce soda pop that they're drinking 4 times a day. Whatever those little things are that you are seeking just to get those pleasure hits. Pleasure. That's just where you want to be curious and have your radar up, because those are your areas of opportunity to start to tune in and get refocused, check back in on yourself and the person that you're caring for.
Now, before we go further here, this is your passion, your purpose, body of work you do. You help people all over the world. How do people find out how to work with you, how to get help, how to get information? Because had I not met you, I would not be as aware to even notice this. I would have not made the decision to come back to Seattle and made the decision that I am going back. I probably wouldn't have made that decision. But how do people learn this? What do you do to help people, and how do they find you?
I have a website, michelemagner.com. There's only one L in Michelle, so it's a little tricky, michelemagner.com. My podcast is called Inspired Caring. It's really about infusing inspiration, mindset, techniques, and tools, interviews with experts around family caregiving. That is on all the major platforms. I'm on social media sites, either under Inspired Caring or Michele Magner. And I do almost all my work virtually. So I'm a content creator. I have created a class called Illuminating Senior Living, and that is launching this Friday. And it's all the ins and outs and every question, low-level hanging question that you would have about senior living, that is answered in this video series. And people can go to my website to learn more.
And I want to say this is so important. I mean, those of you listening, you may be thinking, I'm not in that situation, but I might be sometime. Or I have a friend or a family or a cousin. This is the time to share this, because I didn't know what I didn't know until I was smack in the middle of it, May 19th of this year, right there in the middle of it. Situation, I didn't know if my best friend would take another breath of air the next morning. You know, I listened for every breath that night, and my life changed. And had Michele, I hadn't met you, I hadn't been able to listen to your shows, had I not done that, or even the shows you're doing with me, these things would not be in my awareness or my consciousness. I mean, even to the point, Michele, where I now know that I've been back here for 3 days and I know my best friend is not drinking water. And right? Nothing I'm going to be able to do except bug her sister to say, you got to get her to drink the water. Right. But these are things that we've talked about before. The other part of this, though, is we have to take care of ourselves as caregivers. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so that is part of the checking out versus checking in. Our own healthcare and self-care is absolutely critically important, because had you fully dove into your best friend's pool, you would have gone down with that ship.
Yeah.
If you were not feeding yourself and fueling yourself, you would have also been in a precarious health situation. So I know it feels so hard. It's so stereotypical, put your oxygen mask on first, but you really need to do that. And I would like to invite people to consider, what does that really look like for them? Because we talk about massages, we talk about acupuncture, we definitely talk about meditation and grounding, earthing, things like that. But I would like to submit that peeing is self-care. I don't know how many women I know that are holding it, because they're like, I'm just going to send this one email or make that one call, or I'm just going to go, get the sheets back on the bed. Like, it's literally something as simple as that, as a self-care practice that you have to have in place so that you don't go down with them.
Yeah. Sometimes, and I believe a lot of times, this is a difficult role to have. The most difficult part of this role, where I think buffering can kick in, is the part where what, as the caregiver, what the person you're caring for should do, should eat, to drink, the pills, whatever the deal is, the doctor's appointments. And you have to step in and take that role. But I think the hardest part that leads to what I believe we're talking about is buffering, is when there are things that you cannot get that person to do. It is out of your control. No matter how many times you put the bottle of water in front of them, they're still there 12 hours later. And that takes its toll. And I do believe that's where we check out. That is a trigger to check out. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm helpless here.
Yeah. Yeah. 95. I mean, what I'm doing is working with the people who are in this role of being a caregiver. I'm not teaching them how to make someone do something. No. That's just not how this works. Like 95% of what we are discussing is around them and their own mindset and health and how we're going to take care of them. I can provide tools and resources and thoughts and ideas because I've been a family caregiver for over 20 years. I took care of both of my grandmothers. I handled everything. I helped my in-laws. My mother-in-law was living with dementia. My father-in-law had terminal cancer. Everybody has passed away. But because I have that insight and experience, I can really give thought-provoking questions about things to consider when you're doing this. But the other bigger piece is exactly what you just said, Dr. Pat. It's managing our thoughts and expectations. It's knowing our core values, adding in boundaries. Some of them are hardcore, we're sticking to them, and some of them are temporary, right? We're just going to sprinkle them in. All of that is what equals self-care. That is the formula.
Now, look, I know we have a few minutes left, but this is like the most important part, because I found myself, mindfulness, awareness, there are things that I do, meditation, there are things that I do, but there's something that we also have to manage, and that's our emotions. There are things that will show up at any point in the day. It doesn't matter. It could be a doctor that says something. It doesn't matter. But we are not aware that our emotions have to be managed. And I think if there was one takeaway from this, boy, It's get yourself an emotion barometer and just check in about what's going on.
Absolutely, because that's why we buffer, right? Because we don't want to feel these emotions because they're uncomfortable. And what I would like to invite people to think about is if you figure out, which that formula is how we do it, managing emotions, your thoughts and the values, boundaries, all of that. If you can figure out those things, your triggers are going to like plummet. They're
Mhm.
gonna. We don't have to numb out and check out and buffer. Those things are going to be managed so that you are not as triggered as often, and it's just such a magical, beautiful thing. I'll tell you, the one thing is those values. Hone in on your core values, and I can teach people how to do that. And that is the key to the city for not checking out and buffering.
Yeah. And the reason I love that we're talking about this, because when you're in this role, like I was, you have to make some critical decisions. You may be the decision maker, you may not, but you have to really be of clear mind to be able to take in the options. I mean, this is, I think, also one of the other hardest parts about when do you make a decision? When do you call 911? When do you do that? And, situation with my best friend's sister, who was the caregiver, it took its toll on her. Her AFib kicked into gear. The doctor told her to take additional medicine that she had never tried before. We ended up in the emergency with her. I mean, these are the kinds of things that happen if we're all not more aware. Now, there was nothing I could do to help her by the time I got there. It was a situation. But after I got there, I made sure that all of us were doing some things that were play dominoes. I don't know what it is you do, but I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not been aware of your work and what you do. Michele, I want to make sure that everybody understands this. This is not a comfortable thing we do.
Right.
The little doggy brought me little comfort, little Sadie, the little dog. The little dog brought Linda comfort. But in general, it may tax layers of us that probably have been dormant for years, don't you think?
Absolutely. And not, we have to remember that it's not a perfect best case scenario that was happening before the caregiving role began. Oftentimes there's the big T's, the little T's of trauma that have been experienced with the person that we're trying to care for. And so all of that can resurface when we're now put in a position that we have to be the person to take care of them. I really want to highlight that you mentioned that the sister went to the doctor. Like, do not ignore your health care. Health care is self-care. It's so important that we have certain, medical professionals that are in the loop on our team to take care of us as well. But yes, it's so complicated and nuanced and tricky, and it's temporary. It really is. It can be days, months, it could be years. The chapter has closed for me 20 years for people. So it is temporary. There is hope and there are resources.
Yeah. And, thank you for doing this, because first of all, it is a mindful level of awareness we all need to have. But if you don't even know what to be mindfully aware of, and that's what you've done to help me, some things I would have never picked up on about myself, buffering in the middle of the night till 5 a.m, right? Making sure you're not obsessing on your best friend who's right next to you, whether she's breathing or not. I mean, taking care of yourself. But thanks to you, while I was doing all this, I did go play ping pong.
That's so good.
I know it was so absolutely good. Michele, personal message. What do you want to leave us with? And again, please give people, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have gone. I would not have gone. I would have felt so guilty about going. I really would have. I don't know. I think it was a couple of shows we did that helped me get over that. But these are the things that if we don't do them, we crash and burn equally fast, I think. What's your personal message? And please give us your website again.
My personal message is you can do this. There are people that are available to help you. It's really about identifying yourself in this role, understand that they cannot do it if they can't continue if you are not taking care of yourself, and that absolutely your priority, guilt-free, shame-free. We can manage these emotions. And my website is michelemagner.com. 1 L in Michelle.
Thank you, Michele. Personal message. What do you want to leave us with?
I feel like there are 65 million people in this country, at least, who find themselves in this space, and you are not alone. You are not alone. This is very isolating. Our worlds shrink as care needs increase. And so I really encourage you, look to your local area Office on Aging for some local resources. And then I am always here for you virtually.
Thank you so much. And for those of you out there, those of us that had not had to step into this role, but have recently, and that's my situation, just want you to know, it's like Michele said, you can do some things that will literally help you rise up, be stronger, understand how to help all around you, but most importantly, yourself. Thank you all for tuning us in, turning us on. We'll see you next time.
See ya.